Welcome to the Cyber Business Podcast, where we feature top founders and entrepreneurs and share their inspiring stories. Now, let's get started with the show.
Matthew Connor here, host of the Cyber Business Podcast, where we feature successful business leaders, top law firms, green energy companies, and more. Today, we're joined by the CEO and co-founder of Webs.io, Ron Geva. Ron, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
My pleasure. Before we get too far into it, a quick word from our sponsors. This episode is brought to you by cyberlynx.com. That's cyberlynx.com. Do you know if a hacker's in your system? Most people and most companies don't until a hacker does what they've come to do. With CyberLynx intrusion detection, you'll know if a hacker finds a way past your security before they can do harm. Find out more at cyberlynx.com. That's cyberlynx.com. And now back to our show. Ron, thanks for coming on today. I know things are very busy for you out there, and I appreciate you taking the time.
Oh, no, not a problem. Happy to be here.
So for those who aren't familiar, can you give us kind of the elevator pitch of Webs.io?
Right. Webs.io, what we do is we collect web data from the open and dark web, agnostically, basically everything that we can find. Our system then structure and unify it, and then it is being ingested into big data applications. So our clients tap into our data, consume the data they require, either by a query or any other filter that we offer, and then it streams into the system for later analysis. So you can think about it like Google for machines. So the huge search engines, huge repository of the web, where you can search and just consume the data that you want for multiple use cases.
Very funny you say that, because that was exactly what I was going to say. That was my follow-up. So like Google for big data. Very, very cool. So your ideal client then currently is what? Like a developer at a big data firm? I mean, who's your target audience here?
Right. So initially, when we started the company, that was the ICP, the customer profile. We thought would be a developer because we offer an API. It's a very developer-centric solution. We found that the decision maker is rarely, or at least was rarely, the developer. He's kind of the one, the implementer. So we started changing the marketing messaging towards more the product or project manager. So they are usually handling or facing the problem. The problem is, how do I get access to mass amount of data in a unified and structured way? Kind of because Google doesn't have an API, Google doesn't offer and structure everything. So how do I go about that? I can create my own crawler, but that can work for very small number of websites if you want to do it yourself. But if you go to the millions of websites out there, if you want to collect and unify and structure, by structure I mean you take the text, the author, the date. Of course, date changes between websites, so have something that the machine can constantly know and take into account time zones, etc. Then you are facing a really, really, really huge challenge. And that's something that what we do day and night here. And so you just need to tap into our repository in order to get ready-made data.
So I noticed on your website, you've got something in the range of 50 terabytes of structured data, right? Which that is and I'm sure that grows all the time and an update, but still, that is a ton of structured data, unlike Google, where you've got all these images. I think it's hard for people to realize. I mean, I don't know that you can, it'd be very difficult to kind of imagine just how much actual text data that is. That is a large amount. So you've developed these crawlers. You go out there, you kind of index it, you put it together in a structured way. What kind of data are we talking about here?
So we collect data from multiple verticals: news, blogs, message boards, reviews, e-commerce. On the dark web, there are multiple platforms. The most famous one that usually people refer to when they hear dark web is the Tor network. Mm-hmm. However, the dark web is made out of multiple networks or venues, basically everywhere you can hide. So there's a lot of forums and marketplace that are on the clear web. They have a direct access. They are a forum with a user and password. It could be that you don't have access completely. You need to know someone who can give you a way of buying a membership there, or it could be that is kind of a security forum that have kind of premium membership sections that are not available to everyone. And also it surprised me that these sites are not being taken down because many of them are famous. Sometimes they do and they pop up again. Others are on the Tor network, which is kind of an anonymous network that was started for a very good cause, but in many cases, when there's anonymity, criminals are coming and abuse or use this for their own illegitimate ways. Telegram, another source of application that is being used to communicate and sell, from drugs to weapons to hacking tools, etc., etc. So there are multiple, and we try to collect and find um, only on specifically on the dark web, only places that illicit activity is taking place.
So you actually go on to you actually are collecting data from the dark web, and you're then indexing that. And so now as that, which is really interesting because I don't know of anybody else that's doing that. Um, really cool. So,
Yeah.
um, wow. No, that's super cool. I mean, people do it for, say passwords and stuff like that. But in terms of your application, so what are some of the applications people have implemented with now having access to that kind of data?
Yeah, so the field is called digital risk protection, DRP. Companies or could be companies, could also be platforms that have a kind of a security layer that is kind of proactive, looking for. So it can change. It could be from the most obvious uh, monitoring of credentials being leaked. So if your email was hacked, breached, and is out there, you want to get to be notified. It could be emails, it could be credit cards, social security numbers, etc. So that's kind of a very, very simple thing to monitor because you have the key. I want to know if my email is being mentioned in what context, right?
Right.
That's quite simple. And there are places that or message boards that people are selling vulnerabilities. They found a vulnerability in a certain server for a certain company, and they want to make money out of this vulnerability. So they will sell it to the highest bidder because they want to hack into a system. So people want to monitor if people are mentioning, and so it's many times it's around an IP and not necessarily an IP, that IP address, but an IP intellectual property.
Mm-hmm.
So in some cases, there are employees of companies who want to sell an IP, internal data that they have access to, and they want to make a buck on the side. So they go on those marketplaces and so we can, sell tests, we can sell credentials, we can sell whatever, and you want to monitor these as well. There's also violence. So there are companies that are looking to see if there's kind of a pending attack. Not we're not since we're only collecting basically publicly available data, so we don't go into private messages, etc. So we know what's on those online message boards that people are saying, I'm going to go and hit someone, attack someone because they're enraged for some reason, full of hate. And then you have these conversations and you can get an alert about something that might happen either against a company or against an entity, person, or otherwise. So these type of monitoring is also happening. Malware, ransomware, software being sold. So it's a whole, garden of evil.
Garden of Evil. I love it. No, that's this really fascinating, and I mean the direction that can take is I mean, there's no limit, right? I mean, when you can actually access that data, you can build all kinds of amazing tools. I would imagine that is this something where you're finding government is a big client? I would imagine that there's got to be some.
Yeah, so we're serving companies that are serving government authorities. We are working also with, currently actually it's very interesting because of the war, we are serving multiple government agencies to help us, our country. At least initially when the abductions took place, and authorities wanted to have any clue about what happened to them. And a lot of information was published online on Telegram channels by civilians, just blustering, taking photos, uploading, see what I got, see who I caught, see this video of whatever. And they needed help monitoring those channels. So we are providing them with a tool to help them search against basically specific venues. Could be Telegram many times, but also other forums and sources where people are sharing information that they can link into their hostages taken into Gaza. So that's
No,
one
did
use
I
case
hear
that is
you?
very current.
Did I hear you right? Maybe I misheard. So you're actually able to index encrypted communication?
No, it's Telegram. These are public
Oh,
channels. So
oh, I
it's a
got you.
bit public channels that people go and join, like kind of it's like a topic based, whatever, right?
Mhm.
People join Telegram channels, right, to get updates
Yeah,
and chat.
got it.
So yeah, just people just uploaded
Huh,
information to those channels.
that's fascinating. So let's we love founder stories, and it fascinates me to think, to first of all, this is such a big thing to take on. It seems like it would be a challenge to start with, right? So how did you go about how'd you go from idea to where you are today? Because that's no small feat.
Yeah, so I think it starts, and I really do believe it's easier when you are the client. So we started Webs.io since we ran a brand monitoring company before Webs.io. And
Wow.
we had all sort of ideas before taking on Webs. One of them was create kind of a monitoring software. Monitor your press release, see how well it did. And we created a very nice report to give you a grade about how successful it was, took multiple parameters into it, very beautiful, et cetera, but it couldn't sell anything. Why? Because people told us, you guys are missing pickups of the press release. How do we know? We go to Google, we search it for it, and we find that you guys don't. So basically, it was okay. All I need to do is compete with Google, right? Easy.
Yeah.
And again, I mentioned before, Google doesn't offer an API. So back in the day, there was Bing and Yahoo search engines, but they weren't as good as Google. But also, they also only provide the snippets, and I needed the whole text to analyze the press release to see if it's verbatim or it's related to the original press release. And then I realized, someone needs to, to take this challenge, because if you want to kind of compete or have a huge focus on data collection on the web, you need to only do that. You can, but if you're big enough. But I thought to myself that I need to really focus on this huge problem. So that's where I started Webs. And here and behold, after a few months of development, we found there's traction. Actually, traction people have the same problem. I knew what I needed because of my pain. And I thought to myself, okay, some other companies have the same pain probably, right? And that was correct. That was the case. So we started from news and blogs and message boards. And then we added reviews and started growing. We started 3 people and started selling. It was kind of a freemium model. Anyone could sign up, have a kind of a free access to 1,000 API calls, and you needed more data, you would pay. And that worked well. And one of the things that, I thought to myself, okay, we need to grow by adding more types of vertical. What vertical can I do? And then I thought about the dark web because it was intriguing, not because I had again, here's like the first mistake. I thought it would be cool. And so many mistakes starts with I thought it would be cool. And what I told myself, we'll take the technology and we'll just go dark web. As I mentioned, for me it was Tor network. Tor is a proxy. We'll just have a proxy, get the data, and have the same technology of structuring, unifying, and here you have a new vertical that Google doesn't need it, so I don't have any competition with Google, and it will be cool, and nobody knows what's there, et cetera, et cetera. So the cool factor did get me some clients. So a lot of interest, a lot of traction initially, but kind of an immediate churn right away because they did not find any value. I didn't know if there was value there. Like there's so much noise, so much irrelevant information, and we tried to do marketing and sales, et cetera, et cetera. And then in one exhibition I went to, there was a guy who knew me, and he just left the company, web intelligence company, and he was one of the people who had a software that needed dark web data, and he tested us, and we weren't that good. One of those clients that tested him, and we weren't that good. But he was looking for a job, and it was kind of a lucky mistake, and we hired him. Now, what changed was, again, I hired someone who had the pain and knew what he wanted. Like initially, when I started webs, open web, brand monitoring, knew what I wanted, knew the pain, succeeded. Got in dark web, didn't know the pain, didn't know what I was, failed. So I brought in a guy who had a pain and knew what he wanted, and he kind of rebuilt this vertical. He is the owner of the vertical. And then he told me, dark web is not only Tor, it's also the open web, it's also Telegram, it's also RSC, it's a lot of networks that you need to take data from. And you need to go into password protected marketplaces, and you need to develop a lot of sort of technologies that in order to get to the nitty gritty stuff. But also, you can't just search for hack, I don't know, hack Apple, hack Intel. That won't work. That's not Google. There's a different jargon. There's a different keywords. They need to search for different use cases. So you need to learn and also teach your clients how to search, because even if they think they know, they don't know how to go ahead and find this value in a specific use case. And I was open to the idea that it won't work. Maybe there's no value in dark web. But again, we hire the experts that learn how to search, how to find the needle in the haystack. And when we onboard new clients, we show them. So they came to us, they said, we have this problem, we want to monitor if this and that happens. And we taught them how to search for it. It wasn't that simple. And once they saw the value, they signed up for the service. So that's kind of the story how we became kind of a leader in this industry. It took us a while to learn, and also for the industry, it's not there yet. It's not common. And we call kind of the cyber department internally. However, the cybersecurity, the big, huge industry of the cybersecurity is mostly reactive. So you have the firewalls, you have the kind of protection, passive protection. Something happens, kind of you proactively defend. With dark web, many times it's proactive approach. You want to search before it happens. If there's someone is planning an attack, there's something that a 0-day or something that can affect your system before it happens. So just I think the couple last years, MSSPs are starting to go and offer kind of a proactive approach of monitoring your IP. So it could be literal IPs if they're appearing out there, or software that you're using, if it's appearing as long as a kind of a vulnerability discussion. So before it's being, on the news, people are setting the vulnerabilities on the specific version of software that you're using. Be careful. Take care of it.
That's super cool. So going back to that kind of founding, so basically you were doing this on the PR side of things. You're like, hey, wait a second. And now, did you shut that down completely? The PR side, is that still going today?
No,
okay,
no.
shut that down.
So yeah, the Buzzilla was a brand monitoring company. It's kind of as a local Israeli company. It's doing well in Israel, but we always wanted to go global. Kind of we're too late, maybe. I don't know really, but we were late in the brand monitoring industry to go and compete there. That's why we were searching for kind of avenues to go globally, and I kind of failed multiple times. And we tried to raise money initially on the idea of webs, um, and couldn't, or at least with the offers that we got weren't lucrative enough. And I told you we got traction right away. We got paying customers right away. So we were profitable from day one. It's
Wow.
kind of it's not really fair. It's not that easy to be profitable from day one. We had kind of a beta test or a place that kind of we could create kind of a profit unit inside Buzzilla. Once we saw kind of as a unit is profitable, we spun it off Buzzilla. So
Right.
kind of day one, clients are profitable and grew from there. We saw from 3 people, now we're close to 60. And profitable
Wow.
from day one, and we didn't raise any money still. And
That's huge.
so
Congrats.
thank you. So the way we grow is by adding more verticals, more data, and these days we are also adding an application on top of our data. So it will be a first time that we are opening our data not only for machines or big data applications, but also for analysts. We're starting from the dark web. So we're launching an application called Lunar, designed by analysts for analysts. So it's being used for companies that want to research and monitor risks about the company online.
Very cool. So where are you in that process with Lunar?
So we have beta testers. We just launched it, and 3 or 4 beta testers actually Israeli government agencies. And so yeah, so it's going well. They're getting value, and we're getting a lot of feedback. So we're kind of fixing it before launching the next version that we hope will go commercial after we get the initial feedback. But there's a lot of work. There's a lot of features and stuff to do in order to make it really impactful. We want to basically try to bring value as fast as possible. As I mentioned, it's not that easy to find information. So because of our experience, about how difficult it is to find value, we are aiming to make a system that will make it simpler for analysts to bring from a problem to value as quickly as possible.
Yeah. So I had spent about 10 years in the military intelligence corps, and I was a human intelligence collector, and open source intel is always a value, right? So mind you, most of the time it's just to kind of confirm what something somebody might say. If you can confirm it with open source, great. Now you've got information from 2 different places, and now that becomes intelligence. Just getting it from somebody isn't intelligence, that's information. But once you can confirm it from another source, so I would imagine that something like this, um, you'd have such a huge opportunity on the government side. And I'm sure you're seeing that, I don't know how you necessarily structure that, but I can see the demand being so huge, and whether they can just use your platform like anybody else. If Lunar seems like it might be something that's really easy. They log in, they can then run whatever search they're looking for. Hey, XYZ, boom. Oh, that showed up, boom, boom, boom. I mean, that's pretty fascinating stuff. Mind you, if I'm you, I want the big lucrative government contract to,
Yeah.
but I don't know how you do that when you've got a platform that makes it easy for people just to hop on and find that information. But fascinating. I mean,
Yeah,
very cool stuff.
it is, and I think it also brings kind of pride to our employees that they were able to help in a very difficult time. So to be able to contribute while working at your day job, that's something that you feel fulfilled and proud of. Proud of.
Yeah. So it's funny because when I got out of the army and I started Cyberlinks, I didn't realize until years later that the thing I really loved about what we were doing was we were helping small businesses, defend themselves against all these online attackers. And they are, you almost always from some foreign, country trying to, get their money. And even when it's not, you're
Yeah.
helping defend their business and their way of life from, attackers. Which it wasn't until later that I realized, hey, that's really what drove me in the military, and that's really what drives us today. And so I got to ask you. So here you guys are. I don't think we mentioned it so far. You were founded in Israel, and
Yeah.
and you're there now. Everything is. How does that affect, and how does that affect a growing business in a basically a very small country that's engaged in
War.
conflict like this? How That's got to be a huge part of your day. How's that work?
Yeah, now it's getting better. So initially on 7th October, that was Saturday, that was a shock to everyone. You don't even realize or comprehend what just happened to your country. And me and my partner, Guy Moore, as a co-founder of Webs, we talked about it and we kind of tried to speak with some of the people, the employees. Everyone was in shock. Everyone was infused to the TV, kind of trying to grasp, shocked. So there wasn't really anyone to speak with. Everyone was really shocked. But as founders and leaders, and you have to, in a sense, I gotta step out of it, like get out of this horrible situation. Know that you have responsibility, even though you are shocked like everyone else. But you need to be kind of the adult one. So we came to work the next day on Sunday. We work Sunday to Thursday. And of course, no one came to the office, and almost no one was in the streets. Not because there was any requirement not to open stores or drive, but people, I think, was so scared and shocked that they didn't leave home. So for 2 days, like or so, it was like no one was outside. So all the roads were clear. That's the only upside. So we got to the office very, very quickly. After the second or third day, we were able to take the managers and speak with them and decide what will be the route to move forward. 10 people at that point were drafted immediately. And most of them, if not all of them, not all of them, most of them were from my R&D. That's about a third of my R&D power. Luckily, it didn't kind of hurt at the core, so we were able to function. We have redundancy, etc. But things, of course, are slower. People, even those who kind of were drafted, didn't really work. They weren't like with us. They were like confused, if like. I think it took us a week about to start being productive again, and still not full power. Another week passed. It's been getting better and better. And now I think it's a month in or 6 weeks in. I think we're everyone back in the office. Not the people who got drafted; they're still out there serving the country. But we took kind of this opportunity also to learn and hire external workforce. So that's something that we don't utilize. We have our own employees, our on-prem office, Israelis, etc. So we took this opportunity to start and hire external development power. That's something that I always wanted to have to an extent, and this kind of was an opportunity that was forced on us. That works well. So now I think we're kind of almost full capacity, as like a minus the people that did not serve, but we're making it work, and people are, it was really recommended. It took time for it to be implemented, not to watch TV all day long and be hooked, because that really affected the mood of people. It was really, really difficult. Not to mention that it was such a huge attack that almost everyone knew someone at least knew someone who died. So funerals and just people very, 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 very sad. Um, yeah, and you need to be strong as well, of course, kind of as a leader. Um, and it also gets you as a CEO or manager here. You kind of act strong, eyes on the ball. You want to make sure that everything keeps on working. But then you find yourself alone driving home and start crying, and then everything pours up. And from nowhere, you don't think that it affected you because you kind of were very concentrated on everything to work, but it goes in, gets inside without you noticing even. So it's not easy, but we're resilient, we're optimistic. That will prevail eventually.
Fantastic. I mean, it's yeah, it can't be easy. I mean, it's never easy. And I think from, in a yeah, when it's so concentrated and it affects everybody, uh that makes it tough for everybody, for the employees, for the leadership to be able to stay focused on the matter at hand. Um, when there's the real life, if you will. Of course, work is important. That's how you feed your family and yourself and take care of yourself. But at the same time, when situations like this arise, it's a real leadership challenge as well as a real human challenge. So kudos.
Yeah,
That's not easy.
people. I think many times people wanted to volunteer, wanted to have an impact and help, and many did. And we even from you know um, volunteering on contributing money, sending money. Um, but it's also important to remember. You mentioned that we're a small country. This war costs a lot, a lot of lives, but a lot of money as well. And it's going to be difficult later on. We need to keep the economy moving, and it's going to set us back. So if you want to contribute and make a change, and you don't have the combat skills, and you're not out there, then you better make sure you hire people, you grow, you bring in um, eventually the dollars or the money that will help your country move forward after the war. That's important as well.
That's a really good point. I mean, we saw that in it when you take a look back at like World War II, for instance, right? At there, the whole country, it was so prolonged and it was such a costly endeavor, that everybody had that mindset of, look, you've got to do what you can do to contribute, and everybody rolled up their sleeves, contributed economically when they couldn't contribute to the fight. So it's good to hear. I mean, it is really one of these things that, in a messed up way, kind of unifies people and brings them together, gives them a common mission, which you can actually kind of make something good, from that. I'm, kind of a believer in that when something bad happens, it's how you react to it. Do you shut down and just, and it becomes a really bad thing that you don't ever get over? Or is it something where you use that pain and that struggle to improve, to get better, to get stronger, to if nothing else, make sure nobody else suffer, fewer people suffer from the same thing that just inflicted you, whatever that may be. So I commend you on kind of doing that with your entire company. That is no small feat, and good for you. It's nice to hear that you guys are pulling together like that. So
Thank you.
course. So let me ask you. So Lunar, which I'm really excited about, and in fact, I'm really excited about the whole platform. All this, I've got a number of questions for you. So I'll try to keep this focused with Lunar. Um, as you start to open this up, this will be something? Are you going to open this up to the general public where anybody can sign up for an account? Or okay, there we go.
No, the dark web data is not accessible to anyone, of course, from day one. You can't provide a search engine for illegal stuff. That's illegal. You need to do a KYC in order before you can onboard a client. They need to be a cybersecurity company, a valid use case that won't be used for bad. You need to make sure they will monitor only their IP or the client's IP that they get permission, and not use it for monitor the competition, etc., etc. So there are rules here. You can't, unlike the open
Like
web.
that.
The open web, it's news and blogs, etc. And it's kind of a public information. But when you collect information from illicit sources, you want to make sure that it's for the people that are looking for their own breached information, or it's something that can help only them about their data, not about other people's data.
I like that. Now these are your corporate imposed values, right? This isn't something where you're like, well,
Oh, it's
no,
legal. No,
come.
no, we went to a legal
Oh,
company
really?
to get. Yeah, no, we got the guidelines in order to how to go about that. How you go about collecting agnostically data. Because if you are being hired by a company saying, hey, we were hacked and our data was stolen. Please help us find, I don't know, where it was published. Then, you are allowed to go in and search for the specific information because you have a written consent from someone telling you are allowed to look at our, files because this is our IP, but I give you permission. What happens if you don't? If you want to collect for later on, if people want to, after the fact, not that you want to have this kind of a repository. So you might have in possession information that you don't know, but it collects PII or IP of a company that otherwise wouldn't like this information. It's out there, it's publicly available, but they wouldn't like it to be copied. Then the only way is to have kind of a gated and very, very harsh ways of making sure companies can search and will search for their own IP and or their own credentials. Also, when we find PII, like for example, passwords, we sanitize them, because if you're looking for your password, you already know it. So all I need to give you is just the beginning of the password and the end of the password. Oh, I know this password. I don't need to store the whole password. So
That's right.
we have competitors that are for some reason are selling the complete passwords, and I don't know how it is. It's legal, but they do that anyway. We do put an effort in sanitizing this information. So even if someone accidentally gets it, they don't see the password. They don't have access to it.
That's
Because
great.
the whole point is being notified about a breach, not seeing the breach, because it's your data, you know about it, right? So you don't need the full password to be shown.
It's really interesting. I mean, I think you're definitely doing the right thing. Kind of ethically, if you will. I'm not sure about, I'm sure every country's laws are going to, see that, differently. And it's a fascinating, legal question in that it was out there. You didn't create it. So it's kind of like if Google is same deal. You search something on Google, is Google liable for that
Right,
information?
but we're
Yeah, but
not.
I like your approach.
Yeah, so that's why I initially thought Google public information, but we go in places that we know that hackers are there and posting stuff. So it's not, we're not naive. We know that we are going on message boards and forums and marketplaces that people are selling illegal stuff. So um, we know that's why we're taking extra steps not to make it available to anyone.
I love it. Okay, so that answers the question of lunar and even webs. It's the same deal. You've got to have a legitimate act. You go through a screening process. It's not
Yeah.
open to the public. Yep, you're working with somebody with a legitimate mission to do good, which I love. So I commend you guys on that. Versus, hey, look, I'm going to take $1 from whoever I can get $1 from.
Yeah.
It's tough to pass up $1 some days. So I hear you and commend you on that. That's fantastic. Okay, so what's your timeline? You think for Lunar? Or can people sign up for? Is it a public beta where you can sign up
Yeah,
and?
yeah, yeah.
Oh,
Even today, yeah, you can sign up and get demo. It's production ready. We just wanna fine tune. the first version. That's where we have beta testers, but it's already commercial. It's already publicly available. So it's lunar.webs.io. And you can sign up there. Yeah, but we are very excited about the next versions, and the next we already have it lined up to our 2024 roadmap. So we're very excited about that.
But so let me ask you, and I saw you wrote an opinion on open on what was it?
AI,
On
AI,
AI, and
yeah.
I gotta ask you though, when it comes to what you're currently doing, do you see AI playing a part moving forward? Are you going to kind of are you going to try to leverage that in a way, or do you think the structured data the way it is kind of serves the purpose, in the future? Do you see a Let me leave it at that. Now I've got a follow-up question to that.
Yeah, so it's an evolving, it's great that I just spoke with an employee of mine. I think it's only starting in March. It's already rooted and everyone is using it. But at the beginning of the year, we had some certain plans and AI removed the moat to do a lot of analysis on top of the data. So we are already utilizing AI to enrich our data, and we have a lot of plans to do it and kind of go higher in the value chain, much easier. Because I used to say that we're dealing with the collection. All the analysis is being done by our clients. It's a whole, it's a very sophisticated, difficult thing to do until recently. Recently, then we can do an awful lot of analysis on top of the data itself, getting the data itself. So a lot of companies are thinking about how they can gate or they can prevent companies from getting the data. So that's what I wrote because there are already efforts that could be effective when you have ChatGPT, so Microsoft, Google, the big companies. But thing is that I can't really speak for the publishers because I'm not on their side, especially news sites that are blocking a lot of the AI crawlers. I think it's a mistake because um, large language models, they're trained on kind of old data, old, like even the newest versions, like month old, until few months back. So they cut, they train, and then they kind of have kind of a brain that is updated until a certain date. Up until recently, it was 2021, if I'm not mistaken. So now they have the new version 2023. That's fine, but then you need the added information, the new information, and for that, there's a method of taking kind of the context from the web. So asking, for example, why does Bitcoin prices are going up? So you need to be updated. That's why there's a method called RAG, when they take information, put it in the context, basically telling the ChatGPT, hey, I have this kind of a snippets or piece of information that I collected from the web, talking about Bitcoin and prices. Can you analyze and tell me why Bitcoin is going up? So you need this real-time information. I think what is missing is that companies like Google and Microsoft, ChatGPT, etc., will provide references that they don't do currently, so they don't bring back traffic to those companies. That kind of what led the business model of publishers. That's extremely important. So I can understand as long as they don't get traffic, but I do think that if they do want to get the traffic moving forward, they will need to open access to this RAG approach, having kind of a way off the New York Times to provide this information so ChatGPT can reference to the leaked article that elaborate why they said what they said. That's important, I think. Otherwise, I think Endgame that will do if they really want to prevent it from happening, they will need to put a paywall, a gated. They won't. I don't think they will win the copyright fight. And that's not what the initial law was there. And there's other cases, HAQ versus Lakeman, where publicly available data probable, then you can argue copyright, but then they do derivative work. They don't copy and paste your work, create completely different work. So it's a problem. I don't think they have a legal protection currently. unless they put it behind a password, and that's the only escape. And that's a problem again, because then it will kind of decrease the amount of users they get. But Financial Times and other newspapers utilizing this for long, way before large language models. So we'll see. It's an interesting development.
Well, it certainly is. And, as we talk about this stuff, I can't help but have a number of ideas on how to use this, from a cybersecurity perspective. I'm really excited. I think this is really cool stuff. And having, with my Intel background, I see huge application here for you in the government and helping, fight the good fight. So very excited to see what the future holds for you guys over there at Webs. I think you're doing great stuff. So I'm gonna explore a couple of ideas internally here and see if there aren't ways that we can use this, because I think there's a lot to be had here. And so before we head out, if you could tell everybody where they can find out more about you and Webs and all the great stuff you guys are doing over there.
Well, going to Webs.io, Webs, WEBZ.io, there's a list of verticals, data types that we offer, and they can contact us, and we'll be happy to go online and explain more about how they can use our data.
Well, thanks again for coming on and sharing with us, Ran. Until next time.
Thanks for listening to the Cyber Business Podcast. We'll see you again next time, and be sure to click subscribe to get future episodes.